Hello, everyone. Welcome to Writing Easy, the podcast that takes the act of writing, which can sometimes be not easy, and tries to make it less not easy. I am one of your hosts, Miriam Mascari.
And I'm your other host, Melissa Long.
Today, we are going to do a craft book roundup. Craft book roundup.
Yeah.
Da-da-da-da-da. I can't sing anymore. Disney will get me. But craft books are so... So Melissa, how many craft books do you think you have or have bought in your lifetime?
I have at least 100.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, easy.
Yeah, same. Between digital and paper and so many craft books, and every single one, you're like, this is it. Once I read this book, although honestly, for me, sometimes it's like, now that I've bought it, that will solve the problem.
Yeah, who needs to read it? It's just there.
You just have to own it, rub it on your body. That's it.
It's like a security blanket. You're like, oh, but I know it's there, but I don't have to actually read it.
That helps. I figured it all out. That's you found my problem, and now that's it. But even sometimes when you read it, it's like, well, yeah. I mean, but how though? How though? So, because there's such a large amount of craft books out there, and the quality can admittedly vary, we thought we'd do a little roundup and talk about a couple of craft books that we like a lot. And I think we'll do this, periodically, and give you guys some good recommendations of things that have worked well for us, that we've liked.
Yeah.
All right, why don't you start? Because I think you have 3 books and I only have 2.
Yeah, I will start with like a classic that is so old. It's like highlighted and worn. I'm pretty sure I bought it used. And it came out in 1988. But you know what? The classics never go out of style.
That's so long ago.
It's
so long ago.
In the late 18... No.
Yeah.
So
it's really
old.
sad because I was like, I was in middle school. Yeah, I was in
yeah,
high school.
I was not thinking about writing when this came out. Yeah, so this is Characters and Viewpoint by Orson Scott Card. It is part of the Elements of Fiction series that Writers Digest Books does. And it was one of those books that I just think is super helpful, very clear basics on what character is, how to think about creating really excellent characters and all of the dimensions of characters, and not in the way where it's like this trait and that trait and fill out a worksheet. It's more like, oh, here's what makes a character engaging. And compelling. Here's how to build emotional stakes. And there's like just sections of like, here's different 10 things you can try. So it's not super prescriptive, which I like. And it can help you problem solve when you're like, oh, this character is feeling flat. You can kind of just like flip through and see the headers and subheaders and go, oh, I haven't tried that, which is great.
Orson Scott Card is problematic as a person, but that doesn't mean that his advice isn't great. He's still a really good writer. So if you don't want to give him money, buy it used. And that solves that problem.
I don't even know. I assume you could get it new, but yeah. Just buy used.
Yeah, just buy used, and you don't have to worry about it. But yeah, I have that trouble too. I have another book of his where it's like, gosh, this is good. Boy, is he so canceled. But wow, yeah. But you just have to separate at this point. Take advantage of what you can, and you're not endorsing him in any way. It's good advice. It's good advice. So there you go.
It's good advice. I am kind of one of those people that I've been really struggling with that lately, and come to a new place on cancel culture and what that means for me. And so that allows me to continue to leverage different, like you said, different works in different ways.
It's helpful, and it is helpful advice. So it's a good book about characters. I need to check that one out, because honestly, characters are always the hardest part for me. And then also plot. Besides those 2 things,
that's the whole thing.
Smooth sailing. Yeah. Piece of cake.
Piece of cake after you get those done. This does have point of view in it too, which is something that I haven't seen a lot of books on, because it feels kind of boring. It's like, oh, first person, second person, third person, right? Like, what else do I need to know? And I do like that there's a section in here that is diverted to, well, like, what happens when you're using first person, and what are the advantages of choosing that point of view versus a different point of view. So I think for beginning writers, especially if you're just looking to expand your knowledge on writing and the basic principles, is a good handy go-to.
Nice.
Probably at all the libraries too, since it's so old.
Even better. It's like basketball. I get the fundamentals.
Yeah, fundamentals.
Isn't that basketball? I think that's, I don't know anything that's sport ball. All right. My book is, I think this is actually oh no, it's from Writer's Digest now that I look about it. It's the cover is such that it looks very self-published. It's not not the best cover I've ever seen. But it's a really cool book. It's called Writing in Flow by Susan Perry, PhD. Thank you very much. And the foreword is by Mahalia Csikszentmihalyi, and I said that only to show off that I know how to pronounce his name. Which is that book Flow, right? So it's the whole idea is how to get into flow while you're writing. Which, as someone with ADHD, that's something I always struggle with. And it's really great. What's great about this book is, again, she breaks it down into structure, like here are the keys to writing in flow, and it's things like have a reason to write and loosen up and think like a writer. Key 4 is focus in. And I was like, well, thank you. But that's my own bit of neurodivergence. But what's cool is that she talked to so many different writers in different areas and different like poets and academic writers and fiction writers and people you've heard of and people you haven't heard of, and and they tell their experience of it. It's like, here's what writing is like to me, and I love that because it gives you so much more of, you don't feel like, oh, I must be the only person who feels this way. This must be, you think your experience is completely unique. And you find out, A, it isn't, and that every kind of experience someone else has, and they've gotten to go past it. And so I find this really comforting to open up, read a section, and just kind of feel like, okay, you know what, we're all in this together. And let's look at some of the stuff that they've gone through. So just I kind of went through this quickly, but just to kind of say what the keys to writing are: 1 is have a reason to write. 2 is think like a writer, which is just kind of about, being open to experience, being present. Key 3 is loosen up. Key 4 is focus in, which, again, that one kind of irritates me. And she does mention, you may have attention deficit disorder, in which case you might want to deal with medication. I'm like, yeah, you think? But anyway. And then key 5 is balance among opposites. And I think it's just sort of like how you have to edit and, you write drunk, get it sober sort of thing, that idea. And then there's a whole other section about like things you can do to help you do this: rituals and routines, away with clutter, hearing and seeing things, musical aids, meditation, stopping today to start easily tomorrow, all sorts of good stuff. So I read this through at least twice, and I'm reading it through again, taking careful notes. It's just a treasure trove of great stuff about the mental state and the act of writing, and which for me is always the hardest part. And it's just, I really love this book. So that's Writing in Flow, Susan K. Perry, and it's from Writers Digest Books.
Yay. I love that you brought this book up because I think that so many people are experiencing writer's block or lack of motivation right now, and maybe even for the first time, just because of everything that's going on in the world. And this is the kind of resource that can really help you get out of your own head and be more patient with yourself, but also feel like you're like broadening your toolkit, like we like to talk about, broadening your toolkit of ways and approaches to do things, right? There's no one right perfect answer, and people's process changes over time. So this is a great way to say, maybe what I have been doing isn't working, right? Because I'm hitting this roadblock, or I'm really burnt out or tired or not inspired. So I'm going to read a book like this that's going to help me reevaluate and then try something different.
Yeah, I think it's important to know that it's always a journey, right? Like what worked today might not work tomorrow, and you work because you're a different person and you're a different writer.
Yeah.
And so, it's if you come across a difficulty where you didn't have one before, that means you're growing. So sometimes you need these sort of encouragement, this sort of process stuff to really help you work through that hard thing and level up. You're fighting a boss creature. You got to level up. So what is your second one?
My second one is a screenwriting book. Well, it's a TV writing book. So when I decided to switch into TV writing, I really struggled because every resource that I found was on film. And I was like, but I know that that's different.
Totally different,
for television. And why can't I find any good books? And it took me probably a year of trying and failing and checking things out that were, again, 15 or 20 years old. So they weren't accurate to what was happening in the industry at the time. And
Mhm.
I finally landed on 2 different books, but I'll talk about the one first, which is my favorite. And it just really launched me into really understanding how to write television. And it's called The TV Writers Workbook, A Creative Approach to Television Scripts. It is by Ellen Sandler. And this is one of the books that was recommended by the UCLA TV writing program. And it is fantastic. And that had become one of my go-to things, was like, okay, let me look at some film programs and TV programs and other workshops and see what their professors are recommending for their students.
That's a
and
good
so
idea.
that's a good cheat. Like,
Yeah.
without paying the tuition, just read all the books that a program is reading. But what I love about this book is that it goes to the very basics, and it does a great job dealing with both outlining and also with story structure, because television is usually 5 or 6 acts. And coming from writing novels and being so focused on a 3-act structure, I was like, tell me how to do it. And they're like, yeah. I was like, it has to be 5 acts. And they're like, no, it could be 6. It could be 4. I'm like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
So this was the first time I got real clarity on not just knowing that there's a certain number of acts, but really knowing what needs to happen in those acts, and how a serialized story is very different from a single narrative, like, a feature film or a novel. So I think it's very helpful.
Yeah. I'm always excited about the whole, like, the 7-act structure, the 5-act structure. It's something that always, even for a novel, excites me, because the 3-act structure seems to me, first of all, for me, a 3-act structure, I look at that as a 4-act structure, where it's 1, 2A, 2B, and 3. Because you've got the up and the down, that's all 2, but that's really, those are all fourths of the, anyway. That's really cool. And it's so great that you're able to find a resource for television, but yeah, because it's not something that you can always find, and film is totally different.
Yeah, film is definitely different. And I think that I will say, having written all 3 at this point, I think TV is the hardest, and it makes more sense why there's so many writers working in television on one show. It is incredibly hard to do. Even this 60-page, like, most of them are around 45 to 60 pages in length, and it is so tedious. It is so hard. And so different than writing a novel. I think that people assume, well, I can get a software and I can just type things in, and it's just taking the dialogue from your book and plugging it in. And it is not. Like, that's a good way to make a bad script. But if you want something that actually works, there's, like, so many other layers, because a script is doing so much. It's not the final product, right? So this was a book that really helped me understand that and come into it with a different perspective than what I had previously had. Was like, oh, I just need to cut all this stuff out of my novel, and boom, there's my script.
Yeah. That's very cool. All right, well, my second book, I have a problem with this book because it's got a word in the title that I don't like to say for various reasons, but I'm going to say it anyway. Here it is. It's called Story Trumps Structure. How to write. It really bothers. Like, does. Anyway.
Every time
it's trauma. I've been traumatized. I don't like. It's upsetting. How to Write Unforgettable Fiction by Breaking the Rules, and it's by Stephen James. And I just looked. This is another Writer's Digest book. So I'll tell you what, that press is doing a good job with their craft books, because this one really helped too. And as someone who looks to structure to make things easier, but who still struggles with it because I don't like to follow structure like I wish I could, this is a really great book, because it just kind of says, screw it, don't worry about it. And it really helps you just deal with each moment at a time. Like, don't worry about structure. Just make sure each scene is moving forward. Each things gets better. All these different things that you can focus on instead of structure to make sure that your fiction is compelling. I'm trying to find the table of contents, which I don't. Oh, there it is. One. Yeah. We're just talking about here, like, the narrative forces that shape our stories. There's causality, believability, expectations, continuity, fluidity, polish, dilemmas, and meaning. These things are tools. Actually, he's got a whole bunch of those, but this is just kind of part of the middle. Looking at different elements of story besides just in Act 1 this happens, in Act 2 this happens. And even if you do like structure, these elements are really helpful to make sure that your structure makes sense.
Yeah.
That's always my problem, is just like, well, Act 2 said they're supposed to do this, so they did it. Now what? Whereas this is I feel this is a lot more nitty gritty, like getting into the work of it. And I found this really helpful and really cool. I just wish they had a different title for it, but how did he know? I mean, how was he supposed to know? In when was this published? 2014. Oh, 2 years. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Oh. And actually, yeah. Oh, hard.
It's so hard.
Sad. But anyway, yeah, it's really fantastic. So that's my second contribution to the Craft Book Roundup today.
Ooh, I might have to check that out.
I'm looking at my shelf, and there's so many. Yeah. Oh, it's really good.
Yeah, I think the problem with, me, I love structure, right? I'm in a very structured business. But I have found that the problem with structure is that once you do all the work to figure out the outline and you're like, this has to happen at this point, or this has to be this beat, then when you start developing more of the character or learning more of the characters, people are so reluctant to go back and change that outline. And that is not the point, right? The point.
Oh, that's not me at all.
Is to be like, okay, you know where you're going, but you're allowing some flexibility, or you recognize when something's not working or a better idea comes along and you can sort of pivot and morph that. But I think people see it as a linear, like I do A, B, and C first and I get to Z and the book is done, or the story's done. And sometimes it's like you do A, B, C, T, R, and then you go back to D and continue working.
See, I've tried that, or the other thing that happens with me is I will write A, B, and then forget it. The whole outline that I worked so long on is out the window. Like, forget it. I've changed my mind. I'm doing something different. So, yeah.
Yep. But that's good. I think that's good because it gives you confidence in the choices that you're making, and because you're like, no, I did this outline and then I decided I didn't like that story.
All right, I'll take that. Yeah, I'll take that.
Okay.
All right, last one for you.
Last one is another TV book. It is Writing the TV Drama Series by Pamela Douglas. This one is a little bit old too. I also got this used. We have a lot of great used bookstores. Oh no, it's not that old. It's 2018.
That's
not too bad. That's not too bad. But what I love about this one is yes, there's information around how to create a script and how to write your episode of television, but there's also a lot. This is really focused on the professional TV writer. So there's a good explanation in the beginning of how shows get on TV and what the TV season is, how they get sort of made and sold, and all of the different components. So I remember when I finished my first script, I went to register it with the WGA, and they're like, okay, so what do you have? You have a Bible, a treatment, a script, an outline. I was like, wait, what's the difference between a treatment and an outline? And so this is one of those things where it walks through some of that, as well as just all of the different players involved. I didn't know the difference between a network and a studio and a production company, which seems now I'm like, oh, that's obvious. But when I first started, I had no idea what those roles were and how they were different. So there's a lot of information about the industry that is helpful if you want to try and make a professional career out of working in television, even if you're not writing. It's about the industry too. And the international market is in here, which is a big deal. They do a lot of funding. So sometimes stories get changed or not bought because they don't have an international audience. So understanding that context as well, understanding that they are investing a lot in streamers. So Netflix and Amazon and Hulu, all of those have a lot of foreign investment money in them too.
Yeah, I think that craft books come in kind of three categories of craft, actual, the mechanics of writing the thing. And I call spirit, which is kind of creativity in the process and getting your mind in the right place for it. And then business, right? How do you sell this thing? How do you deal with those three things? You need to know about all of them. Yeah. And so it's good to have books and all sorts of things. It's interesting to see which ones, a particular person has most of. I have a lot of spirit books.
I probably don't have a lot. I probably have maybe 5 or 10 spirit, but I'm into the details. I want to know exactly how to do what, where. I have a lot of prompts and workbooks.
I think I finish the spirit books more than I finish the craft books, the technical books. So I think the technical books, I glean what I want from it, and then I'm out. Yeah. Like, okay, yeah, I see where you're going from. Okay, forget it, and then I don't finish it.
It's like an encyclopedia, or for people who aren't quite as old as us, a wiki.
Yeah.
Just drop in, how you used to pop back out.
What you used to use to write reports in school,
right?
Oh boy. Well, cool. I think we should do this somewhat periodically of, round up some of the craft books that we like, because again, there's so many out there. And like even now I'm looking at my my little virtual bookshelf and how many I have that I still would love to talk about, like the War of Art and Goal, Motivation, Conflict, and
staples. Like we should definitely talk about those.
Yeah, those are good ones. And then I can't remember the name of the service, but there's a service that does Story Bundle. Story Bundle just had a craft book bundle that came out, which I bought. So I've got like 10 new books, including a book called The Heroine's Journey, written by Gail Carriger.
Oh,
if you know who she is.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm going to read this just because it's her wonderful, delightful voice. I don't even care. I just want to read her stuff, just whatever she does. So I'm excited about that too.
Oh no. See, I think we should continue doing this, but this sounds like an excuse for me to buy more books.
Yes. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I admit it. All right, everyone. So I think we're going to wrap it up here. And if you can, tell someone else about the podcast. That would really help us out a lot. Otherwise, just remember that writing is hard.
So take it easy.
I'm Mary.
And I'm Melissa.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.